Thank you very much. And I want one thing perfectly clear before I get started. I was not Little Frog. That's very important to say. My name is Daniel Rowe. I'm here to talk about the state of Nuxt 2024. I'm a full-time open source maintainer. I lead the Nuxt core team in building Nuxt, and I'll tell you a bit about what that is in a moment. But I'm also involved in some other projects. So I help maintain Nitro. I have a couple of little things you might want to try out. So pagespeed.dev is a way to get your core web vitals for your website and share them on social media. Regex.dev, magic regex, is a different way of writing regular expressions that is type safe and compiles to normal regular expressions at build time. Fontaine helps reduce cumulative layout shift. So if you're using a custom web font, it makes the system font look as close as possible to that using CSS. Clever CSS rules that I didn't come up with. Elk is a client for Mastodon, which is like a distributed social network. Firstcommit.is will find your first commit on GitHub and let you share it. I've never told anybody publicly about this yet, but I'm building a new site, a new course called React to Nuxt. So you can try out reacttonuxt.com and it will let you sign up for a waitlist. This is my cat, Barley. And Barley here is doing what she does best, which is stopping me from working. I often have to choose not to type and just say review code because she's sitting in a position that makes the laptop impossible to reach. I live in the UK. I live in Scotland, in Edinburgh, where I've just moved. I live there with my family and obviously my cat, who is convinced that she is the most important feature of the city. And before that, I've done other things. I was a CTO of a SaaS startup. It's very easy to be a CTO of a tiny company. And I had a small marketing agency as well. And before that, I was the vicar and all of that. So just as we get going, I have a quick question for you, and hopefully the internet tethered to my phone will work. But have you used Nuxt 3 in production? Yes, only version 2, or not yet. And I just want to take a moment to underline how clever I am. Because you notice I haven't said yes and no. I have carefully chosen my words. Is anything happening here? Let's see if we can get online. And get some numbers in. Amazing. This is perfect. Okay, we have numbers. And this is fantastic because I'm going to tell you a little bit about where Nuxt has come from and where we're going. And hopefully it really will be a not yet and you really will try it out a little bit later on. So if you haven't come across Nuxt at all, Nuxt is a framework built on top of Vue and on top of a server rendering framework called Nitro that we also built. It aims to be zero config to start, to build best practice in, and to let you customize it fully so you can take it wherever you want to go. And that is what it was for me, and that's why I used it in my previous job and why I started contributing and what excites me about it going forward. The first commit was back in October of 2016. It was started as a Vue equivalent for Next, which was for React. And not a day goes by that I don't regret that choice of name and the confusion that it brings. I will tell you that actually I did find out. I was just scrolling Twitter and I came across a guy who I didn't know who was telling a story of how he accidentally built his site on Nuxt because he was starting a website, and I think he was from Australia, and he really wanted a Next website. But he communicated this to the agency. They're like, oh, Nuxt website, we got you. And they built his website in Nuxt. So, this does sometimes pay off. I was, delighted to hear. That's the long game, that's what we say, the long game. Now, one of the things that you'll probably be familiar with if you are familiar with Nuxt is that we took a really long time to release version 3. And there are a lot of people who come up to me with pain in their eyes and like lines on their face that were not there before, who tell me about the upgrade path from version 2 to version 3. And I want to say just to the start, I'm sorry. You can see a little bit about our timeline. We rebuilt the entire framework from scratch, starting in July 2020, and released it November of last year, 2022. I know it's not technically last year, but you know what I mean. And yes, that's a bit of our timeline. The road to actually rebuilding Nuxt 3 was a painful one, as I say. And we learned a few things. So we learned that scope and time are not both fixed quantities. So if you want to commit to a scope, a grand scope, you might have to be flexible on the timeline. And if you want to deliver to a timeline, you might have to be flexible on the scope. And actually going forward, we're deciding to be pretty inflexible on timeline and let our scope adjust. We learned the importance of ecosystem. So it's not just Vue having a massive major upgrade from version 2 to version 3, or PostCSS having a massive major upgrade to version 5, or Webpack version 8, or Webpack having a massive major release to version 5, or Evan infuriatingly releasing an amazing bundler called Vite, which also messed up our plans somewhat. But also everyone depending on Nuxt and building their own integrations from Vuetify to our modules and other things too. And so one of the things we've prioritized and are prioritizing now is our ecosystem. And doing what we can, not just to tell people, but actually proactively push fixes and PRs and updates to modules that are built upon Nuxt. And I'll say a bit more about that in a moment. We also learned that relying on our internals. So actually figuring out Nuxt, one of the things that makes Nuxt is that it has a huge ecosystem of modules built on it that can tie very deeply into it. But when you're completely rebuilding the framework, obviously, a lot of those deep integrations stopped working. And so we realized that it was important to build an SDK layer for those integrations so they can write code that just works, even if we do change the internal implementation details. And we learned that it's very difficult to repair a moving car, as you might notice from the number of release candidates we released on the road to Nuxt 3. We also released a library called Nuxt Bridge, which we shipped as a module. And the idea was that it would be a compatibility layer to enable people to adopt features of Nuxt 3 from the composable architecture to the server rendering layer incrementally. And I will say it's been of mixed success. I've heard of some companies who found it incredibly helpful and others who found it's much more helpful just to scrap everything and start over from scratch. I would love to know, by the way, if anyone here has used Nuxt Bridge in anger. Right, has used Nuxt Bridge. I should say that we're now coming up to the end of life of Nuxt 2, which is the end of June. We extended it by an extra 6 months in order to give people time to update further. So originally was December 31st, but the release of Bridge was delayed, and so we pushed it a bit further on. And but we're coming up to it, so I just want to flag that up. Companies like Hero Devs provide ongoing support for it, but we're moving towards a Nuxt 3 and 4 world. This is our download count for Nuxt. This is live data, by the way, so I never quite know what it's going to say. If there's like a dramatic last-minute dip on the right-hand side, then that it's a fluke. I'll just say that. So these are the sort of numbers. It's 50,000 stars, nearly 30 million downloads, and about 64% adoption of Nuxt 3 versus Nuxt 2, which is good, but I would like to see it a little bit higher. But actually, these numbers are not nearly as important as this slide. These are the contributors to Nuxt. We have over 680 people who have contributed in some way to Nuxt, as far as GitHub is aware, and quite a lot more people who have contributed to Nuxt in other ways that it's impossible for GitHub to track, but which I value very much indeed. And Nuxt is a community framework. We're not driven by a venture capital-backed company. We are of the people, for the people. And that's why this really matters. I mentioned the ecosystem, and here's some stats from it. You can access these yourself. by pulling api.nuxt.com modules. But we have a public repository, Nuxt modules, which is an index of things that people have built in the community, integrations. And we're able to pull data from that to get an idea of what people are building and how many people are using those. And we're also able to push changes upstream. So I have opened literally hundreds and hundreds of PRs in a semi-automated fashion in some cases to modules to bring updates, changes to prevent any breakage in the ecosystem. And it's really, really valuable from my point of view to know that there is this public registry of integrations for Nuxt. So do check it out at nuxt.com modules. There's some amazing things that people have built. One of the things I've seen this year and last year is, and which I'm really delighted by, is the number of different UI libraries that have been created, either with support for Nuxt or released with a Nuxt template or just fully on Nuxt. So there's lots and lots, and I think probably lots more that have I've left off that slide. I'm really delighted to see it because it means people are building with Nuxt, they're using it, and they're building amazing things. Honestly, nothing brings me so much joy than when people share cool stuff that they've built. And I think that I've played a little part in that because I'm helping maintain the framework they're using. I would love to know what you think about Nuxt, if you have an opinion about it. If you go to this website, I'm really hoping this works. It might not. It'll give you a chance to enter like a word or a phrase or a sentence or something, and I think it will come up on the screen. So again, no guarantees. Thank you. I'll, as agreed. Yes, excellent. Also, this is a terrible, potentially risky thing to do. So please, no one spoil it for everybody else. But you can give honest feedback. You don't have to be positive. That's fine. Fortnite, interesting. Unknown. Emojis and nice emojis. There are nice and there are not nice emojis. I think I've never, the smiley emoji, just the simple smile. That's also known as the serial killer emoji, I think. But I was told recently, I don't know if anyone in the audience, but I've often used a thumbs up emoji. I was told that was passive aggressive and awful. Is it passive aggressive and awful? So then I switched to using the okay emoji. And then I was told that was racist. So I'm definitely not using that anymore. So I would welcome suggestions. Interesting. Okay. Little frog. Oh, dear me. So, I mean, this talk is called The State of Nuxt. And I guess part of what I'm aiming to do here is get a feeling of the state of Nuxt from you. So rather than me just saying this is how I feel things are going, to hear about it from your point of view. Have people... I'm not using that in place of thumbs up from now on. Anyone, people feel that you've had a chance to say, okay, I want to sort of do go see Lee Martin's lightning talk. I want to get a feel for what the overall picture, and this also might go terribly, terribly wrong. I was tweaking this morning, so definitely might not work. But an overall feel for what kind of feedback people have given. I have a little drum roll. Ooh. We didn't need the drum roll. High enthusiasm. That's one way to put it. Users expressed great excitement and enthusiasm. They used phrases like awesome, wow, excited to try, and shared positive emojis, showing a strong and positive emotional response to the product. Powerful and fast tool. Easy to learn and use. Competitive advantage. Compare Nuxt favorably other similar tools. Feedback such as better than Nuxt indicates that users see Nuxt as an industry leader in its category. I promise I've not prompted this. Feedback such as built and maintained by a wonderful team, and we love you so much. So appreciation for not just the tool, but also the team behind Nuxt and the community. In conclusion, Nuxt is widely supported by its users for its power, speed, ease of use, and the supportive community it nurtures, making it a key player in the web application building frameworks market. I want to know you the prompt. I want to tell you the prompt that I used, so you don't think that I have. It was this. I said, your computer in charge of summarizing feedback, provide 5 brief bullet points, summarizing the themes. Don't be over the top, but measured, professional, and friendly. Conclude with the final sentence, summarizing the feedback. So thank you, everybody, for some very lovely words. And that is, I think, the state of Nuxt 2024. Looking back about a year, I started leading the core team in 2023 in January, and made a couple of promises that we would unify the Nuxt codebase, which was at that point split into a couple of things. That was very easy because it was just a matter of merging Git histories. It was actually relatively easy compared to other things. That we would focus on key modules and the ecosystem, that we would focus on developer experience and keeping that our top priority. We would have a stable release cycle, so releasing patches about every week, minor releases for features about every month, and major releases for breaking changes about every year. And that we would focus on helping people migrate from Nuxt 2 to 3. And we've delivered on some of those and not on all of them, although we have tried. This is our forward vision looking to the future. So one, we want to focus on stability. So people knowing, so we've gone from like 2 versions of the entire lifespan of Nuxt to now a release of a completely rewritten version 3 and a promise that we'll release new major versions about every year. That is a huge change. And one of the most important things that I want to convey and to commit to is stability in the framework and in the ecosystem, despite the fact that we will be releasing breaking changes and new features on a regular basis. So one of the things that we do is we have adopted the ecosystem CI model, which Evan spoke about yesterday, which gives me great confidence when I release a new version of Nuxt that it's not going to break anything that we're testing. And that's meant that we can ship cool stuff like server components, which we've had for a very long time in the core of Nuxt and which are gradually making their way out of experimental status. App manifests, build caching. We were the first framework to ship Vue Transitions API sort of long before anyone else. We have 0.js and 0 Vue runtime modes for Nuxt. I don't know if you know that, but version 3.0 shipped with that. We have support for inline root rules. Multi-app support is coming soon. I'm working on that right at the moment with a few other folk. And we are building things that let us keep things stable. So we have a test utils library. We're working directly with the vtest ecosystem and with support for others like Jest and Cucumber and Playwright. We collaborate with ecosystem CI itself, and we're committed to forward and backwards compatibility. So we have futures and features namespaces within the Nuxt config so that as we release new things, you can opt in and out of them if it causes problems for you, meaning we have space to fix issues that occur and ensure that we can roll out new features in a stable way. I'm working on a downstream testing action so you can get the benefits of ecosystem CI in your own private repos. And also we are going to be shipping Nuxt 4 with incremental code migration support. So that's something I'm pretty excited about. And if you maintain a library or an integration for Nuxt, let me give you a personal invitation. Please feel free, and you have tests. Please feel free to submit a PR to ecosystem CI. I'll happily test new releases of Nuxt against your library to make sure we don't break them. We're working directly with the web platform DX group, W3C group, to make sure that we are committed to baseline support for features in browsers, so that new features get rolled out in an experimental way, and we commit to support old browsers until the features are widely available and we don't need to support them in core. And we've rolled out lots of other things. Here's some things I'm excited about. I won't say too much about them, but there are exciting things happening in the JavaScript ecosystem these days. And we evaluate our results. So we use the telemetry, which is opt-in. Please opt in. It helps us know, for example, what experimental features are being used. And we evaluate performance data from real-world projects via the HTTP archive to know whether what we're releasing does, in fact, make positive impacts on your Lighthouse scores, for example. So here are the kind of philosophical things we are committed to going forward. We believe in a minimal philosophy. So the idea that we can ship Nuxt with a tiny core and have new features, things that you want to use, be opt-in. So code isn't if you ever used Express, for example, as a framework, you'll know you accessed its features by res.json or something like that. The feature was always built in. With Nuxt, we have adopted an auto-import basis. So we can ship features that are not added to your bundle unless they are used. And that means we can be very flexible in what we're doing. We can build a platform that can be used in a wide variety of different use cases without having to ship all of that code and all of that functionality to everyone. Actually, only if you use it will it be part of your site. Now, I don't know if anyone here has questions about Nuxt 4. I've said we're aiming to release Nuxt 4 on or before the 14th of June. That is very soon. And Nuxt 4 is all about, sorry, it's not about hype. Features ship in minus. 3.12 is going to be pretty cool. It's coming out in a few weeks. 4 is about thoughtful breaking changes. I'm aiming to, so some things we need to break occasionally. We need to break things. I'll tell you a little bit about what we're breaking. But I want to do it in such a way that you can opt out. You need to. That you have a migration path so that it's straightforward to do. And your experience will be a lot better than 2 to 3. So my top priority, I would say, for the release of Nuxt 4 is making sure that people trust me going forward for Nuxt 5 and 6 and 7 and don't feel burned. So we can release major versions without destroying people's lives. That's the aim. And so there are a couple of things that we're doing. So for example, we have a new default directory structure. Don't be worried. If you use your current directory structure, it will still work. We detect what you're using. This is actually already implemented and merged in 3.12. And I'll tell you how you can test it in a moment. But the idea is that we put most of your application in an app folder, a source directory, with a server outside. That's for performance reasons and also for to help it be more intuitive, that the server isn't something running inside your Nuxt app, but it's the other way around. And we'll also have auto-imported layers directory. Also, all this is implemented already. And an auto-imported modules directory too. We have more performant defaults, such as shallow reactive payloads. So when you have you're doing data fetching, we don't make the whole massive object reactive, but only whether it's there or not. So when you update it, it's still reactive, but if you change a tiny value with inside, it's not. Again, that's opt-out at either a global or a per composable level. And we want to do things like a non-reactive runtime configuration or using the native browser cache. So these are technically breaking changes. Most users won't experience them as breaking changes at all, but we are saving them for a major release. And there's some best practices that we want to adopt that will unblock future things. So passing absolute paths in the builder watch hook. And for every single module I could find on GitHub in our registry and also modules that are not on registry, I've already submitted a PR to fix this breaking change in a backwards compatible way. So it shouldn't affect anybody unless you're using it internally, in which case it's one-line change. We're removing the pending Boolean in favor of status, namespacing window Nuxt to allow multi-app support, and improving consistency in composables, like switching from a null default value of error to an undefined default value of error. These are the kind of breaking changes that I hope won't make you lose a lot of sleep. And you can try it today on the nightly channel by setting your future compatibility version to 4 and installing Nuxt nightly. You can test the breaking changes and see how painful they are. And if they are painful, let me know. Here's some other things that we care about a lot. So I hope it's not a surprise. So we believe a lot in friendly collaboration. So as part of building Nuxt 3, we built and separated out a lot of libraries that we thought would be useful for the rest of the ecosystem too. We included them in a GitHub org called un.js. We didn't want it. Previously, we had something called Nuxt contrib, but we didn't want this to be about Nuxt. We want this to be about collaboration and the ecosystem in general. And we've seen huge adoption from the framework like Nitro being adopted by other meta frameworks like Angular, Solid Start, TanStack, and I hope many more. And libraries like Jitty being used by Tailwind CSS or Keisli or however you pronounce it, and many more. And I think it's really important to say that, I guess it's maybe a trite, cliched thing. If you want to go, If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I really feel that what we're doing with Nuxt and what we're doing hopefully across the JavaScript ecosystem is we want to go far. We want to improve the state of the web. We want to improve the experience of us as developers. And it's not about building an empire of any one framework. It's about improving life for all of us. And this is a really big value for us. So, collaboration. Now, I've been told this is true, and we're safely far away from Australia, but I'm told that in Australia, there are no fences for cattle. There's a different approach. Instead, you don't need fences because the cattle will always come back to where they are fed. And this is called a center, in general, like philosophically, I would describe this as a center-bounded approach to a community and an ecosystem. So rather than drawing a line around and saying, if you're in, you're in, if you're out, you're out, a center-bounded approach says, if you turn up, you're in. And that is what I want Nuxt to be. If you get excited about the same things that we get excited about, if you want to build with Nuxt, if you want to contribute to Nuxt, you are in. There is no wall, there is no boundary, and there's no barrier as far as I'm concerned. We are center-bounded. We're building cool stuff, and it's really fun. I can't believe I get to do this that's what I do on my day-to-day basis. I'm sponsored, and I just get to have fun. But sorry about that. We're also all about an ecosystem. So another key value that we have is that we don't believe in single products. We don't believe in lock-in. We don't believe in making decisions for you. So we support a huge number of different providers across what we build at Nuxt. Whether that's auto-config deployment from everyone from AWS Amplify to Vercel to Cloudflare Pages, whether we support different drivers for testing from Jest to VTest to Cypress to Cucumber to Playwright. We even have different routing implementations in Nuxt. We have different bundler interpretations, and Vite is so amazing, but we don't want to force people not to use Webpack, for example. We support different KV and cache drivers. We support database drivers. We support loads of different providers for images. You can use 6 different providers for custom web fonts. And actually, for any of these, you can build your own custom preset and support anyone you want, because choice is one of our biggest values. And I think it's one of the biggest values for the open source and free software ecosystems, and one that I absolutely stand behind. So we support over 90 providers, for example, and that is something that I would love to see increase. So if you are using a provider that's not on that list, please come forward, build it. We'd love to have it in core. And what we stand for as well is a welcoming community. I hope. This is our aspirational goal. I'm not going to sit here and say that we're welcoming. I want that to be true. So we work hard on our docs to improve syntax support. We now have built-in // integration, so you can hover over code examples and see the types there for you. And we also type check everything, so we make sure it actually works. When we build the docs, we'll get type errors if we are giving you code that doesn't work. Credits to Anthony Fu, by the way, who is completely rewritten or contributed massively, rather, to Shiki and // and roll them out across the ecosystem, again, not just Nuxt. We chat on Discord, so come join us at chat.nuxt.dev. And if you have ever opened an issue or a PR, check out your profile at nuxters.nuxt.com. You probably have some points and maybe a special role on our Discord server. which you can unlock. And a final offer. I have an open diary at row.dev/chat. If you want to book a 10-minute call, I would be really grateful. I am glad of the opportunity to chat, particularly if you want to get involved in open source or want to contribute Nuxt or have something else you want to talk about. And that is particularly true if you feel like you're an outsider or you don't maybe look exactly like the people who are already contributing and you want to talk to me about something. Please book a chat. I can tell you now that you are welcome, but sometimes it's important to say that to someone looking them in the eye. Please book a call. There's some exciting things we have planned. So Nuxt fonts actually just released. I probably don't have time to demo it for you today, but it's pretty cool, if I do say so myself. We have an accessibility module, an auth module, a performance hints module, and a scripts module, which is right now in public preview and very shortly to be announced, hopefully with 3.12. So there's some exciting things coming. I think that remains just for me to say thank you so much for all your support from the whole Nuxt team. These next months and hopefully years are going to be an exciting ride together. Thank you very much.